That's the very nature of their ministry, is to accumulate wealth and fame. So those are going to be a lot of the ministers who are most famous are going to be prosperity preachers, because that's the aim of their entire ministry, is to generate that wealth and to rise to prominence like that. But a faithful Bible teacher, pastor, isn't out there seeking fame for themselves. Mm-hmm. They're faithfully preaching the word to, whether it be 10 people in their congregation or 500 people in their congregation. They're not out there seeking the wealth for themselves. They're just preaching the word. And in those churches, I would venture to say that they know how to suffer well. If you have a pastor like that, your congregation knows how to suffer well. Right. And you know that God can ordain and use suffering for his glory and for your good. He will use it to bring you closer to him. He will use it for you to be a light to other people around you. Romans says that God works all things together for good for those who love him and are called according to his purpose. Like, if you're preaching the word, it's inevitable that those who are hearing it will know how to suffer well, because it's all throughout Scripture, and that suffering is ultimately used for God's glory, and we should always look at it that way.
I 100% agree. I think that they misrepresented Protestants. I think they misrepresented us a little, because I 100% agree with where you started off by saying that I wanted to be offended, but so yeah, I think that there's a bad name out there, or maybe a brand, or whatever you want to call it, that the prosperity gospel is the majority, and it just stinks, because it's not the truth, and mm-hmm. So I did take issue with that a little bit. I kind of wish that I was in the conversation with them to kind of
say hold on a second.
Hang on a minute. Let's pump the brakes.
Yeah, let's back up a little bit here.
Because there's a lot of issues with all churches, and I don't think that the prosperity on a majority scale, I don't think the prosperity gospel is like even in the top 10 of problems with evangelical churches. So I heard a statistic, and I'm going to forget the statistics. But what I do remember is there was it was a video somewhere, and it was talking about how close to Scripture do churches teach, and because it started off with this mass number of churches, and as it kind of went through the questions that the interviewers were asking the churches, like as a whole, it was like this percent of church would stick to these teachings or whatever, and then when it got down to all of the whole point of the video was like only 2% of churches actually stuck to like biblical teachings, like not woke, not progressive Christianity, not prosperity gospel. When it got down to the actual like true Scripture doctrines, as close as you could teach it, only 2% of churches stuck all the way down the line of questioning. And I thought that was super interesting.
Yeah, I think that came from a ministry called Ligonier, based out of Florida. They did a huge survey of churches, and I don't know if it was churches in the world or if it was just churches in the United States or how many, but it was a massive survey, and that was sent out to people. And I think that stat comes from them. And if you've ever heard of R.C. Sproul, an author and pastor, he's the one who founded Ligonier ministry. So, but I think that's where that number comes from, is that survey.
You might be right. I'm not sure. I can't remember. But thanks for citing my source for me. Appreciate that. Sometimes you watch a lot of videos and you're like, man, what was that? I can't remember. But okay, so demonic encounters is the next one. Claims of levitation, the woman, the nun that crawled up the wall in front of 2,000 people. And then so did it sound to you that he went to a school of exorcism or to learn how to. There was some type of school or education behind it, and he saw the vomiting of nails and frogs.
Yeah, that's what it sounded like to me. Yeah,
I didn't miss
I think
that.
you're right there.
I think it was some type of education. I'm not exactly sure, but I was skeptical of all of that. I'm skeptical of all of that. I kind of took Michael Knowles' position, or at least his articulated position, where do I believe that those things can happen? Well, if you believe that demons exist, yes. If you believe in demons and you believe in possession and you believe in the spiritual warfare and the spiritual world and the realm, can a demon, even in the Bible, it talks about demon possession. So if you believe in that, then yes, you tend to, like, you'd have to logically conclude that those things can happen. But are they happening today?
I don't know. I mean, I would think so. I don't know. I don't. I mean, I wish I could.
I don't know.
I wish I could have a better answer for you. And is it real? Could it? So maybe it's better. Like, this is another one of those things with. I just can't say with certainty that yes, this exact thing is happening today. Because for one, I personally haven't seen it.
Neither have I.
So does that mean absolutely no? It's not happening anywhere today, or that this guy's story of seeing it take place is any less valid? Again, it's that level of skepticism of the specific event. I don't know. I wasn't there. I didn't see it. I haven't seen it before, but I do know that similar things happen in Scripture, right? So at the very least, has it ever happened? Yes. Like you can say with Scripture, and the verse that came to mind is, one of them that came to mind, if I can get my phone to work again, is Matthew 17 in verses 14, starting in verse 14. It talks about, and when they came to a crowd, a man came up to him, kneeling before him, said, Lord, have mercy on my son, for he has seizures, and he suffers terribly, for often he falls into the fire and often into the water, and I brought him to your disciples, and they could not heal him. And then Jesus answered, O faithless and twisted generation, how long am I to be with you? How long am I to bear with you? Bring him here to me. And Jesus rebuked the demon, and it came out of him, and the boy was healed instantly. Then the disciples came to Jesus privately and said, Why could we not cast it out? He said to them, Because of your little faith. For truly I say to you, if you have faith like a grain of mustard seed, you will say to this mountain, Move from here to there, and it will move, and nothing will be impossible for you. But here's a boy, seemingly with, we would say, oh, seizures are just a medical issue, right? But it appears here, at least in this situation, that he was having seizures and being thrown into fire and into water and all of these things and suffering terribly because there was a demon in him. And it was causing him to do these things, right? So at the very least, we have scriptural examples of a demon causing physical manifestation of something, right? Could that be levitating and floating in the air? I guess. It threw a boy down into flames and in water. Could it be? Yeah. It's hard to have the certainty to say, yes, this is definitely happening now, today. I wouldn't go to the lengths to say, seizure disorders are demons. We kind of touched on that earlier. Like, is every bad thing a demon? So I don't know. That's kind of where I am with it. I can just to say Scripture definitely gives us examples of things like it, but to what degree would we see it, or would we encounter it, or would it be happening?
Hey guys, it's Parker from the WatchWell Podcast. If you liked this video, we want to go ahead and have you subscribe right here on this button. If you want to watch the full podcast episode, go ahead and click right here. And if you want to watch another WatchWell clip, go ahead and click right here. And remember, if you're going to watch well. We'll see you in the next one.